Thank you.
So we've got another wonderful guest here who is going to showcase what they're doing, and the panel is going to, again, have a look on how this could be scaled up. It's the same structure, the same format as last time. Thanks very much indeed. We have with us Christopher Carrick, CTO. What's the CTO when they're at home?
But I'm also
Chief Technology Officer.
Yeah,
okay, great. That's good. No, I'll get there. And founder of Lignin Industries.
correct.
Great, Christopher. So tell us exactly, you have 7 minutes. What are you up to? What are you doing? Why should we be excited?
Yes. So hello, everyone. I'm a chemist. I'm a material chemist, and I've spent too many days and hours in the lab trying to do something good. During my speech today, I have 3 main things that I want you to remember. The first one is capital efficient, scalability, and CO2 reduction in the plastic industry. Just to set the scene, the plastic industry is a massive industry, consuming about 400 million tons on an annual basis. It's also heavily dependent on fossil fuels. About 99 or 99.5% of all the plastics around us are made from fossil fuel. And there's very, very few alternatives to that on the current basis. The sad thing about that is that the plastic industry is also growing. I love plastics, but it's fed with the wrong source. The estimations are that the plastic industry will triple in volume by 2050. What we do in our company is that we use the leftovers from the biomass industry. So when the biomass industry, such as the agricultural industry or the forest industry, is making bioethanol or making white paper from brownish wood, they remove the brown part or the yellow part in the agricultural industry, which is called lignin. That is our raw material. And now I want to touch upon the first thing, which is scalability. On a global level, there is 700 million tons of lignin being processed annually. That is almost twice the amount of plastics being consumed. So the raw material is immense. We use this raw material called lignin, and we convert it together with natural oils, such as rapeseed oil, into a material that we call renol. It's a thermoplastic material that is miscible with standard or recycling plastics. Our technology can today replace about 40% of the fossil feedstock that is used today in standard plastics while preserving material properties. So that is very important. I also have some projects to illustrate this, or products illustrating this. So this is an e-commerce bags made out of 100% our recycled material and our material. It's a net zero bag that fulfills the 2050 targets of being net zero already today. It's, as consumer, it's also interesting to how does this fit into the existing infrastructure we have today. So this material is fully recyclable, so us as a consumer will still leave it at the green bins in the municipalities, and it will be material sorted and used again. The next thing as consumer will notice as a difference is 2 things. The first thing is color, so we will be browner. It doesn't necessarily need to be this brown, but this is non-colored lignin. The second thing you will notice is the fragrance. So you will, instead of having a smell of plastics, you will have a fragrance of wood. And for me, that's quite pleasant. The second thing we do is to work with more hard plastics or harder plastics. Polypropylene, the second most common plastic used on Earth today. This is our strongest mix. We mix in up to 40% of our material in polypropylene. This is quite interesting when we are replacing 40% of virgin or recycled plastics. So when we are doing 40% of our material in 60% recycled polypropylene, we end up with material that is final material that is carbon negative as application. This is going beyond the 2050 targets we have set out in the world. The problem, there is a dilemma to this, however. So when we are introducing that much material of us, is that it's no longer sortable in the existing infrastructure. So the limit for us goes at 30%. So the dilemma is that either we make a net or a negative material that will only be used once, or we do a less sustainable material that will most probably be used more than once. Last thing I want to touch upon is the CapEx efficient, and this is, I believe, the most interesting part of doing a change. So we have all heard about very expensive technologies such as Northvolt or Stegra or other things. Those are still very, very necessary. We are not such a company. So when we are taking our raw material lignin and turning that into a thermoplastic, we use existing infrastructure already in place. So we use something that is called extruders. The entire plastic industry have those machineries. So basically what we're doing is we're giving something new for the plastic industry to eat compared to fossil fuel. So the infrastructure is already there. Last thing, CO2 reduction. Biomass is grown from photosynthesis, something we learned very, very young age. And that is...
I have to hurry you now, by the way, because you
that
have
is
14
consuming
seconds.
atmospheric carbon dioxide as it grows,
Right. Okay.
enabling very, very low carbon footprint material.
Good. Fantastic. You're bang on time. That's very good, very comprehensive. Let's go to our panel. Apart from the amazing smell, or maybe that's the comment you want to make, what do you think about scaling this? It's also kind of nice to ask a question like, where are you right now? Because I don't know, scaling implies you're at some point in your activity.
Okay, so first on the market again, and yeah, it's an incredibly strong opportunity if you look at, let's take the fossil industry. When they're looking ahead, of course they argue that we will continue to burn oil up to 2050 now, which is not correct because we will shift to electrification, but they actually see a particular growth in the chemical industry in the plastics, and that does not have to happen. We should actually focus on shifting that out, and that industry is a bit behind. So there's a tremendous opportunity to start to accelerate basically the plastics industry in a new direction. So I completely agree on the tremendous opportunity as far as I see it. And it's been going on a bit under the radar, so that's number one. Then of course the question is, because you had all the strong argumentations, it would be interesting to hear what are the main blockers, of course, because otherwise you should be able to shift out immediately, basically, and grow a tremendous market in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So what would be the blockers I would be interested in? Because
the blockers are, I think, the enablers.
Yeah, enablers and blockers.
When shifting focus
Okay.
here. The enablers are, so we are a company today producing 2,000 tons. That's nothing compared to hundreds of millions of tons that we are competing to. Our technology will be able to take the cost leadership approach once we compete on the same scale. So in the transition that we're into now, we are more expensive than fossil plastics. We don't need to be that. But in the transition, one has to push for this, and they need to accept that our material is perhaps 20% more expensive. So in order for all change to happen, a sacrifice has to be made, and perhaps during 5 years we will be more expensive, but the trade-off comes quite soon. So when we are producing about 50,000 tons of our material, we are on par with fossil materials. And I think the bravery of companies and brand owners to actually push for this and see the long-term objectives is key. And I think politicians and regulations needs to be in place in order for a conversion to happen. It's just, for me, that is bravery from brand owners willing to commit to this. Or we can go to IKEA and they will sign off 50,000 tons overnight and you get that for the same price. So that would also enable this. But
so I think the recommendation in that case would be to find the really big downstream companies, to have them invest directly in your company, and actually that they pay a premium up front and get the massive financing in place so that you can scale sufficiently fast in that case.
Actually, great, fantastic presentation. Thanks for sharing, and very much trailblazing work. I would actually just have 3 questions in terms of the ways in which to consider the scaling, right? So one is around, as you mentioned, policy. So California is banning plastic bags completely quite soon. For example, going to market strategies where policy is already established so that you can be the new entrant where the incumbents no longer are allowed. So that was a curious question about, have you scoped out the policy options globally in markets that can pay that price? 2 is around your competitors or collaborators. There are a lot of climate tech innovations in this space, and the challenge, as you mentioned, is outlined in those 2 dilemmas. One is, can it actually be beyond one-time use because of the way in which the infrastructure for taking it on and recycling does or does not exist? Or are there other kind of chemical, compostable ways in which you can actually, let's say, recycle the plastic naturally because of the biochemical opportunities that other tech companies are doing? And then the third question was really around finance. Are you noticing traction with VC or other kind of financiers that are jumping on and latching onto this because they're noticing that trend? So these are the questions that come to mind when I think around other ways to analyze the opportunities. I don't think you have to answer all of them, but those are the kind of key ones.
Let's start by remembering them. But I think looking at California as an example, I think so I love plastics. It's highly functional, and I think it can also, so we're making a plastic bag, and I guess that would have the same criteria in California. This bag is cheaper than paper bags, and it's more sustainable than paper bags. So we're presenting a material that is plastic, however not dirty. So preventing plastic bags, I'm totally against that, unless you find a plastic bag that is simply sustainable. So that's one thing. Financing us, I think in Europe and in US we have 2 very different climate situations or investment situations. In Sweden, or in Europe, I would say we are quite risk avert. So we need to have an ongoing business in order for venture capitals to start. We are at the point right now, we have production of 2,000 tons. That's equivalent of 21,000 people's plastic consumption. And we do have demonstration units. We also have external partners lined up to scale. So we don't need that much money in order to scale. We need working capital.
It's trying, I think.
Okay, good. We have 15 seconds left, 14 seconds left. Maybe I can just make a small comment. It would be nice if we got rid of fossil fuel subsidies around the world, $7 trillion worth, which would then price your product even more competitively against the normal shit that people are buying. Okay, thank you very much. We've come to the end. Best of luck. Thank you very much indeed with us. And one of the team here will give you your free gift, Christopher. Thanks.